What up, everybody? I previously reported back in 2023, towards the end of the second season of Force, that showrunner Gary Lennon did an interview where he said if given a third season, he would bring back an OG Power character to dirty up the storyline. But through the first 4 episodes of season 3, we still haven't seen this mystery OG Power character appear, now going into the mid-season finale. But with that said, this could be the episode where that changes, because there's 2 scenes that show mystery characters from the season 3 promos, one from the trailer and one from the exclusive images. And we now know that both of these scenes will be taking place in episode 5, the Force season 3 mid-season finale. The first picture shows Tommy in his loft with a gun in his hand, but not drawn, looking down at someone sitting in a chair. Now this was one of the first season 3 images that was released before the trailer even dropped. And around the same time that this image was released, there were other images released also. And most of those images were from the first 2 episodes. So because they shared an image from episode 5 at the same time with the images from episodes 1 and 2, could that mean that this will be a significant scene in season 3, potentially revealing the mystery character who appears? Then the second scene where the mystery character could be revealed in episode 5 is the scene with a biker on a dirt bike in front of Diamond shooting at who I believe to be the Yardies. Because I recently just rewatched episode 1 of the Force series, and I noticed that one of the shooters from a drive-by scene in the trailer is one of the same Yardies who Tommy shot in episode 1 of the series when he interrupted a deal between the Yardies, Gennard, and Vic Flynn. Tommy killed one of the guys, and he let the other walk away alive after shooting him in the foot or something like that. Also, keep it in mind, in episode 2, Gennard had mentioned that the Yardies had been wilding. So it does look like we're finally going to be introduced to Zamos, leader of the Yardies, potentially in episode 5, as he was mentioned multiple times in season 1. But the character who pulls up on the dirt bike shooting at the Yardies, potentially saving Diamond and CBI, could also be the mystery character. So either way, if the OG character who Lennon mentioned at the end of season 2 is revealed this episode or not, the mystery character or characters from these 2 particular scenes who we've been debating about who they could be will both be revealed in episode 5. And when we're talking about episode 5, something I noticed about this episode that I found interesting is that the episode is titled The Last Dance. And this is obviously a callback to the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, that featured MJ's final season with the Bulls, while also going back and documenting his entire career run and even talked about his childhood a little bit. So I find this to be a very interesting callback. And what could this be referring to when it comes to Power Book Force? Potentially being Tommy's final episode as a member of the Coalition in CBI before things go all the way left. This could also be referring to JP's last episode on the show, as he could potentially be getting taken off the board this episode. And possibly The Last Dance referring to the ending of a relationship. But because we know that Tommy and Mireya will continue to be together from the season 3 trailer, this could also be talking about the end of Shanti and Gennard's relationship. Keeping in mind that the trailer shows a clip of Shanti telling Tommy to watch his back, and another with Shanti telling Tommy that these brothers are looking out for themselves. Now let's talk about who it is and who it isn't in these 2 clips. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Either though it could potentially be the same person in both the clips, It doesn't necessarily have to be either, and I doubt that it is, honestly. I just hope that one of these two clips finally reveals who this mystery OG power character is gonna be. Starting out with the image of Tommy in his loft. One thing to keep in mind in regards to this image is the fact that Mireya has been living with Tommy all of season 3. So at the time of this image, where is Mireya? Is she at work, or has the person on the screen that Tommy's looking at done something with her? And that's potentially why Tommy doesn't have his gun drawn. But when it comes to who it is that Tommy's looking at and bringing back an OG character, let me start off by saying this could be the perfect time for Ghost to return if he is indeed alive and gonna return to the show. And sitting in a dark room waiting on someone to get home is definitely a Ghost type of move. And with Tommy becoming a lone wolf and separating from CBI, this would be the perfect time for Ghost to show up and have Tommy's back while his enemies all think he's a lone wolf and there's nobody in his corner. And with Ghost, like I've said before, there's no timeline restraints, so he could technically appear at any time. Now with Tariq, the situation is a lot more complicated because of the fact we know what he's been doing in book 2 and that he made no trip to Chicago, and if he does, it's at the very end of the book 2 timeline during the credit scene when Tommy made the call. And we really have no idea where the Force timeline is compared to the Ghost timeline, either though it's believed that Force should be at the point in the timeline when Tommy went to New York on Ghost Season 3, especially because it's been said twice now in Season 3 of Force that Kate is in New York. But with JP's death coming soon, something we also have to remember is that JP was still alive when Tommy went back to New York and hashed things out with Tasha. So if it is Tariq in that image, that means that the Force timeline is further along than we thought, and Tommy's already been in Chicago for a couple years now. I think it could also be Vic Flynn who Tommy's looking at, potentially after making a move against Mireya. Keeping in mind the episode 5 trailer shows Vic saying that they're going to hit Tommy where it hurts. Or it could potentially be Miguel while Mireya is at work. Keeping in mind that Mireya just let Miguel into Tommy's crib last episode. Concerning the shooter on the dirt bike, taking out who I believe to be the Yardies. The two people we've seen on bikes this season is D-Mac and Manny Fresh, but the dirt bike shooter isn't on the same bike that either of them had, and from the side angle it doesn't look like this shooter has dreads. So it's really difficult to predict who this shooter is, but I definitely don't think it's Manny Fresh because she has no reason to help CBI take out the Yardies, at least that we know of. It could definitely be D-Mac saving CBI, and especially Marshall, either though it doesn't look like the shooter has dreads. Other characters to keep in mind when we're talking about OG characters making their Power Book Force debut is 2-Bit, Crystal Ball, and Rashad Tate are the first characters to keep in mind, but I don't see none of them being the biker or who's in Tommy's loft either. And there's also the potential return of Elisa Marie Proctor in the Italian Mob. One character who I'd personally like to see on Force is Kane Tejada. Keeping in mind, he's currently in an unknown city on the run. But the same goes with Kane as with Tariq. We have to wait until we find out where Force is on the timeline compared to Ghost to know if Kane could even show up on Force at this point. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.